This morning's lesson is titled The Womb of Eve, Mother's Day 2023. Why talk about the womb of Eve? Well, first of all, the history of Mother's Day. Anna M. Jarvis, she died in 1948. She's the first one who suggested an observance of Mother's Day. Her mother had passed, and she had a memorial service for her on May 10th, 1908. She gave a carnation, her mother's favorite flower, to each person who attended. And so within the next few years, the idea to honor mothers gained popularity, and Mother's Day was observed in large cities all across the U.S. And within a few years of this gaining popularity, by 1914, May 9th, Woodrow Wilson proclaimed second Sunday in May as Mother's Day. And it was very simple. It was a time for a public expression of our love and reverence for the mothers of our country. And so by then it's become customary to wear white carnations in honor of departed mothers and red carnations in honor of the living mothers. Continues this day. So our country decided they were going to honor mothers, and that's a good thing. So happy Mother's Day. And so what I want to do this morning is, recently there's been a lot of biological confusion. I mean, the same nation that said, hey, we're going to honor mothers, now can't figure out who is mothers, okay? And give you an example. I'm going to read this to you. There's this huge woke movement of the trans culture, and they're hijacking the very vernacular that we have. Here's an article I pulled up. And I could have pulled up 500 articles like this. Science is redefining motherhood, if only society would let it. It's time to decouple maternity from womanhood. Recent advances in fertility science are helping pave the way toward inclusivity. Let me read you the story part of it. Carl, a PhD and lecturer at MIT, so it must be official if the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is picking it up, this guy gave birth to both his children despite being the one with the baby bump. He was routinely asked to wait outside while the nurses attended to his not pregnant wife. Now you're probably saying, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. People were unable, he says, to see both a man and a pregnant body. As a result, Carl became a fat man rather than a pregnant person. Despite being assigned female at birth, now we're getting down to the brass tacks, and possessing a uterus and glands for lactating, Carl was not, in the eyes of even the medical staff, the mother. Carl considered himself Papa. Other transgender parents choose more androgynous terms, largely because of the way motherhood has been construed. They go on to say motherhood is really misconstrued. Well, in an effort to normalize that which defies biology, the trans community has been the primary force redefining the word mother. Now, you can go to hospitals everywhere. I brought this up for an example. Britain's National Health Service, Brighton and Sussex University Hospitals in England, are now instructed, and this is throughout hospitals all over America now, okay, are instructed now to follow gender-inclusive language policy. Maternity wards, have you ever heard of maternity wards? Okay. They are now to be known as perinatal services. The word mother is to be replaced with phrase birthing parent. I actually knew somebody who went to go give birth, a woman went to go give birth at the hospital, and they kept referring to her as the birthing parent or the birthing person. Isn't that kind of demeaning when you think about it? It says, okay, so breastfeeding will be called chest feeding, and breast milk or mother's milk will be called human or chest milk. That's what they call it now. So using the Bible, since we study the Bible here, I want to look at the first woman ever recorded in history, Eve, just to make sure who's following science. She never studied human physiology. There's nothing in the Hebrew that said she did. And yet, she managed to figure out the reproductive process of human beings. So let's go ahead and take a look. In the beginning, Genesis 2:21 through 23. See, I'm not going to have your Mother's Day ripped off from you because someone redefined you out of motherhood. So the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. And the Lord God fashioned the woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and brought her to the man. And the man, Adam, that's what it is in the Hebrew, said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, Isha, because she was taken out of man." That's not Adam, that's Ish. He uses a different word. That's why it's capitalized. These are capitalized words. These are words that Adam is naming that. And so that first word there is Adam, means male or sometimes mankind. After Eve was formed, Adam referred to himself. Adam means man, male, sometimes synonymous to mankind, but it has to do with a man. But he uses the word Ish. For this reason a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. He said, "This is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called Isha, because she was taken out of Ish." He specifies a different word. And the reason why he does that is because his word means a man. Okay? No identity crisis here. But it's a specific man. A specific man. It's a man who is a husband. And that's why when he says Isha, it's a specific type of woman, a wife. Hosea 2:16. Let me read you this from the NAS. "It will come about in that day, declares the Lord, that you shall call me Ishi, and will no longer call me Baali." And if you go to the NIV, it says, "You will call me my husband." So the E on the back of it, Ishi, means my husband. So it's a specific type of man that he uses. And it naturally, then when he uses the base word for Eve, Isha, it's a specific woman. One who is with a man. You see, you remember in Genesis 1:27 and 28, God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth." Now, he wasn't talking about buy a calculator down at Staples and open a fruit stand on Old 40. That wasn't what he was talking about. Be fruitful and multiply means to reproduce. So when God said be fruitful and multiply, which was said before God made the woman, at that point the idea, do you think that reproduction was just an afterthought of God? No, he already knew it. He already knew it. And so this directly goes back to the name Adam gave for his spouse Eve in Genesis 3:20. In Genesis 3:20, it says, "Now the man called his wife's name Eve." Why? Why would you call her Eve? Because her name means the mother of all living. She's the mother of all living. So her name is Eve, the mother of all living, and the type of woman she is one that is paired with a husband for the purpose of becoming mother of all living. So God had planned this already. And so with that in mind, so Eve, you're going to become the mother of all living, the first mother, and God planned for you to pair up with Adam to help this happen. In Genesis 4, verse 1 and 2, Now the man had relations with his wife, Eve, the mother of all living, and she conceived and gave birth. Say with me, she conceived and gave birth. Say that with me. She conceived and gave birth. Don't forget that, because we're going to try to figure out what's going on, how many different things are going on, these flying parts all over the place in society. It's going to be important to understand she conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have gotten a man-child with the help of the Lord. I think she was from Texas. It says again, she gave birth to his brother. Oh, there's another one. And Abel was the keeper of the flocks, but Cain was the tiller of the ground. And then in 425, Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son. I think she's figured biology out. She did it. You did it, Eve, mother of all living. You figured out without having to study biogenetics. You figured out where babies come from. And so, got that figured out. Let us go ahead and look a little closer. So in Genesis 5:1, going back to the conception of Cain, it said, 5 verse 1, now the man had relations with his wife Eve. She conceived and gave birth. She conceived and gave birth. We're living in a time and a place where there appears to be a woke agenda of biological confusion. Today, now I say experts in quotes, because here's what the experts are saying. That there are many sexes confusing the perceived sexual orientation with motherhood. The Bible communicates a message that there are how many sexes? 2. Okay, good. Whew. If one of you said 112, we would have to have a talk. Okay? God, who invented biology? Bio, life, logi, the study of life. That's what it is. The study of life. Who invented biology? God did, okay? Because if you think you own a patent on it, you don't. God already had it. Who's right? The woke experts or God of the Bible? God is, okay? Well, let's just make sure that we go back to the womb of Eve and figure out why she was called the mother of all living. Okay. Month 1. Leading up to that, there's cell duplication and implantation. Within 24 hours after Eve's egg was fertilized by Adam. Now, we're going to use biology. Nobody was there when this happened. They didn't have ultrasound and all these scopes to check it out. But what we know about biology today, everything we know, this happened in Eve. Egg was fertilized by Adam. Cain was no bigger than the size of the head of a pin. His cell duplication, already taken place, descended down Eve's fallopian tube and implanted in the uterine wall. As the hours of the first days ticked away, Cain went from 1 cell to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and because he's growing inside of Eve's womb, the placenta and umbilical cord began to form to provide Cain all the nutrients that his little tiny pin body would have. Additionally, the amniotic sac formed and began filling with fluid for his protection. That's what we know happened because we know biology. But by month 1, Jeremiah 1 verse 5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Known biological facts show us that over the next 4 weeks, Cain's body began to grow. Continued to grow. He had an oversized head and facial features like this critter right here. See him? Cain looked like that. Oh, by the way, you look like that too. That's just human biology. So don't think Cain's special. It's just biology. And so, in this first month, the placenta continued to provide nutrients, oxygen, immunity was given to little Cain via route through his mom. By the way, his tiny heart was now beating 65 times a minute and is a whopping 1/4 inch tall. Big Cain. Yep, we know that happened. By the way, if you get a biologist, you want to know where I get these facts from? From the experts. Okay? So if the experts are right on the biology, on how life came into being, then it has to be applied universally to Eve. So if they argue against this, they're arguing against themselves, and then that further confirms potentiality of mental illness when you argue with yourself all the time. Month 2, Ecclesiastes 11, verse 5. Just as you know the path of the wind and how bones are formed in the womb of a pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. At the end of the second month, by that time, Cain's legs and arms formed with tiny little buds on each side. His facial features developed. He now has ears, fingers, and toes. The neuro tube at the back of his head already contains a brain, a spinal cord. It also has, he has skeletal structure that's coming into place. His early digestive tract is also formed at this point. You see, this is Cain, not actual photography, but this is you and everybody else who ever lived went through this same process. And so Cain is now estimated to be a whopping 1 inch tall, sporting a skeletal structure and all. But then by month 3, Job 31 verse 15, did not he who made me in the womb make him, and the same one fashion us in the womb? Yeah. The science of biology teaches that by the 3rd month, Cain's arms, hands, fingers, feet, and toes are fully formed by that time. He was able to now open and close his hands and his mouth. He already is forming under in his mouth the gums. His gender was already prevalent. Cain is now fully formed, but only 4-inch frame before entering the 2nd trimester. That's what biology says. Cain went through that process. So in the womb of Eve, by month 4, Jeremiah 20 verse 17, it says, because he did not kill me before birth, so that my mother would have been my grave and her womb ever pregnant. By the end of month 4, Cain's fingers and toes are very well defined. Additionally, he now has eyelids, eyebrows, eyelashes, nails, and hair. And now Cain is an impressive 1/2 foot tall. Well, this little rascal's growing quite a bit. He can suck his thumb, by the way. He finally is out of the most vulnerable trimester, the first one, and so now we go to month 5. Psalm 119, verse 73. Your hands made me and fashioned me. By the end of month 5, visiting the womb of Eve, we find out that Cain is now able to scoot around quite a bit. The muscles are developed enough he can push up against the uterine wall, and Eve, she could feel by this time little Cain jumping around in her uterus. And so Cain has quite a bit of growth that is now undergone. He has this whitish coating called the vernix caseosa, which is the white cottage cheese looking stuff that protects his flesh from the amniotic fluid, which can burn the skin if it's not protected. It's like God put in there skin cream to protect it so all babies aren't born looking like Freddy Krueger when they come out. And so with that in mind, he's now 10 inches long. But by month 6, Job 10 verse 11, more has happened. Clothe me with skin and flesh, knit me together with bones and sinews. Biology teaches us that Cain had hand and footprints, and he had his fingerprints and everything already formed at this time. If Cain would have had the FBI come and question him back then, the fingerprints he would have given are the exact same ones he has in month 6. He'll carry the rest of his life. That's how awesome Cain was made in the womb. And so Cain is hiccuping now. He can recognize Eve's voice. He recognizes his mom's voice. I don't know what she was speaking. I do know that the first argument ever taking place in the Bible was with Adam and Eve, who was going to wear the plants in the family. He might have heard that. I don't know. But I do know babies can hear in the womb their mother's voice and loud sounds from outside. Some mothers actually put on headphones on there and play Beethoven and stuff. I don't know if that works or not. Let me know if you find out. I never tried it. And so now you have Job month 7. By the way, Cain is a foot tall and he weighs about 2 pounds by this time. In month 5, Psalm 119, verse 73. By the end, I didn't cover that. By the end of month 5, it says, your hands made me and fashioned me. He's 10 inches tall. He weighs 1 pound by month 5. That's right. His hair is growing on his head. But then you went to month 6. This skipped back, didn't it? Yeah. I thought so. Okay. We're on month 7. I think, wow, I missed a trimester here. I don't know how. Okay. Month 7. Month 7. Your hands fashioned me and made me together. Yeah, he's 14 inches, 2 pounds. He can hear his voice by month 8. Psalm 22, verse 10. Upon thee I was cast from birth. Thou hast been my God from my mother's womb. At this stage, Eve's feeling a lot of kicking there. Even though it doesn't say it in the Hebrew, if biology is true, and all the experts say, yes, biology is science. Okay, good. We're going to follow science. And science says Eve was being kicked around by Cain by month 8. If you choose to argue, he's 18 inches and he's 5 pounds in weight. But then by the time you get to month 9, Psalm 139, verse 13 and 14, God did form my inward parts and weave me together in my mother's womb. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. And my soul knows it very well. He's fully developed. He can respond to sounds, light, touch. It's pretty crowded by this time in the womb. I can just bet you Eve felt pretty big at this point. By the way, he's averaging about 21 inches long and 7 pounds in weight. He can fully, he's ready to enter the world. And so in Genesis 5:1, it said, she said, Eve gave birth to Cain. So we started out, she was conceived, and we walked through this, and these are the facts. You can't argue with science. And you can argue if you want, it's to your own detriment. This is what happens. Okay? You didn't invent it, I didn't invent it, God invented it. And we can't really argue against that. But why are we covering that? Very simple. Let's have a little reflection here. From the very beginning of the human race, which we just read about, every single person for whom you know passed through the same path of biology. Everybody. The womb of Eve set the precedent for all mothers, for all humans on earth, whoever lived, is living, or ever will live. Here's the revelating fact. Every single human being you know, including yourself, came through a woman. Want to argue with that? You can't. Every single person that ever did. They had a mom. No doubt about it. Genesis 5:1 might have been a simple verse that Eve gave birth, but it's overlooked by the experts. The experts. Here's a fact. All human beings have a biological mother. Yes or no? Yes. Can't argue with that. All human beings have a biological mother. That cannot be escaped. All biological mothers had a biological man involved. Yes or no? Yes. You can't escape that. Okay? So all human beings have biological mother. All biological mothers had a biological man involved. All babies have a biological mother and father. Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Okay. Do you know if you deviate from this right here, any other union other than a biological mother and a biological father has a 100% infertility rate? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah. It's so simple. It's biology. And so all the wokeness in the world cannot ignore these facts, for biology is spoken. Biology is spoken. It doesn't matter what you might read on the internet. Oh, there's so many. I'm telling you, don't believe everything you read on the internet. You must study to show thyself approved in the Bible and everything else. Doesn't matter if you hear a politician proclaim that. Did you see? There are a whole bunch of politicians in D.C. now that can't say mother. Yeah, they can't say it. And these politicians are teaming up with the woke movement, and they're completely ignoring biology. It doesn't matter what you think, anything beyond what we covered, every human being was in a biological female. That's a fact. And we have to get our mind around that. So I just wanted to be able to wish you a happy Mother's Day. Christians must follow the science, follow truth, follow logic, and follow the Creator. That's the only safe way to go. And I'm not going to stand by and wish you a happy Mother's Day unless if you know I know what a mother is. And I know you know what a mother is. So happy Mother's Day. May you never be called birthing parent, because God designed you a very special way. Go out and celebrate today.